My name is Greg Barabalt, and I lead the program management team within the Skype for Business team on meetings. And I'm responsible for designing and developing the team that's developing our broadcast solution. So broadcast meetings for Skype was announced in the keynote on Monday, so hopefully you all saw that. Julia did a very, very brief demo that showed both what the attendees would see and what the producers would see, but it was really too fast to get a good sense of how that works. So I'm going to spend the time today going much deeper into how that all works, why you would use it, the types of scenarios that we support, and a bit about how it's built so that you know the impact that it'll have on your own infrastructure. So I wanted to start by actually going back to the beginning when we were starting to envision this and think about how we wanted to approach this market. And with any big software project, you need a set of kind of galvanizing design principles that a team can get behind and work towards. And for us, these principles were what we set out to achieve. And let me go through each of these in a lot more depth. So scale. I mean, broadcast meetings is about delivering a meeting solution to a large audience. So at our GA launch, which will happen later this year, we're going to support up to 10,000 people in a single meeting, live, watching the broadcast at one time. This is a couple orders of magnitude bigger than our current limitation of 250 people in a Skype for Business meeting. Now, the reason for that is actually pretty simple. Skype for Business meetings are meant to be collaborative discussions. They're two-way. Everybody in the room is effectively equal. They can all contribute audio, video, content, IM. It's not the case, really, as meetings scale beyond even 20, 30 people. This room is a typical event for us. In fact, we're running a broadcast meeting right now. We've got a camera in the back, and we've got the screens that we're showing here and there's people online that are watching. It is a broadcast. They're really sitting back and consuming the event. They're not really participating and contributing into the meeting. So our goal was to make that scale very simply. And when you think about the impact to your own network and your own deployment, there are ways to take Skype for Business or a link server and scale it up to many more than 250. You can get up to about 1,000, 1,200 people. But to do that, you're really allocating hardware. You're allocating server resources for those meetings all year long, and they go underutilized for most of the year. There's really no reason to do that. This is exactly what the cloud is designed for, and we can bring the capability of the cloud and really spread that, the cost of that infrastructure across all of our customers, knowing that we'll run several big meetings at any given moment, but not every customer is running a large meeting all at the same time. So there's no reason for you to deploy special pools, special hardware to support large broadcast meetings when we can take advantage of the cloud and we can provide that for you. But scale is more than just going big, right? Scale also can mean scaling down small. So we also realize in broadcast meetings that people don't consume them sitting at their desk with a webcam and with a nice big screen and laptop or keyboard and mouse. They'll take them on the go. They might listen to the broadcast in their car. They might listen to it kind of walking around the house in the morning getting ready for work. And to do that, they'll be on their phone. So we also want to make sure that our solution can scale down and stream efficiently to mobile phones, let people consume them really on any sort of network. And last point is about your network. So we need to be very sensitive to the way we're utilizing your network capacity within your enterprise. And we don't want to have 10,000 streams coming into your internet access point through your company firewall and saturating your internal network. So we're building out solutions to help you scale that, the network use within your enterprise. So point number 2 is about reliability. These meetings are expensive, not just in terms of the technology, but in terms of the people. If you have a multi-thousand person meeting, that's many thousands of salaries that you're paying for the hour that the meeting is going on. You can't afford to have that meeting fail. You don't want 1,000 people waiting around and watching something spin or failures to join. Our job is to make sure that these meetings are completely reliable, highly available, and very resilient to error. And so we do that with a combination of the enterprise-grade Skype for Business meeting solution and the built-for-the-cloud Azure media streaming services. Every point along the system is designed for failure. We design it to fail over to other meeting pools, to other Azure streams, to other egress points to get out to the CDNs and eventually out to your devices. So reliability is key for us. And my boss likes to use this phrase, we can bet our job on broadcast meetings. I swear sometimes he's talking directly at me that I'm betting my job on broadcast meetings, and I'm sure I am. But what he really means is that for you, he wants to make sure that you can bet your job on this. You can feel confident that you can start up a meeting and it's going to work every single time, and you're not going to be embarrassed in front of 1,000 of your peers. So confidence is really a critical piece of broadcast meetings. And confidence also brings me to this point about familiar experiences. Now, broadcast meetings can be highly orchestrated, highly produced events. In fact, really all of our all-hands meetings for our teams back at Microsoft, they're run just like that keynote was, right? We have Common come out and introduce everyone, and lots of lights and cameras. No, seriously. These are not run by TV producers. These are run by team admins. They're run by people that might run a large meeting once a month. They might run a meeting once a quarter. And for them to sit down in front of an AV router or an audio mixer, that's complicated. That meeting is not going to likely be successful just because of the risk of human error. There's going to be mistakes made in how I switch from a camera to a slide, or I switch from one microphone to another. We want to take all that complexity away and make the solution approachable to people that will run these very infrequently. And the way that we do that is by just building the UI directly into the Skype for Business client. So it's a tool that you already have, it's skills that you already have, and you're just applying them at a greater scale. So now there's more to do, and I'll show you what that means, but it's a very approachable, and the muscle memory of using Skype for Business will just take over and you'll do the right thing in these meetings. And the last thing is about engagement with the audience. So every meeting, especially at this sort of scale, is going to be different. They're not cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all broadcasts. We know that to engage with your audience, you'll need different tools, and you'll want to engage in different ways. If it's an internal meeting for an all-hands audience, it's a secure meeting. What might be important there is a rich Q&A capability to let your employees ask questions, and maybe you want to engage in a social feed on Yammer. Maybe if it's a webinar and you're reaching out to a customer base in a sort of B2C scenario, you might want to use something like Bing Pulse, where you can really get a sense of, hey, when I said that we're launching this feature in the 3D printer technology, my audience really liked it. I got a big peak. Or maybe when I announced the pricing for my new 3D printer, I got a little trough in the chart. So it really depends on the type of meeting that you're running, and we want to make that super extensible and flexible for you. So I'm going to quickly review a little bit of the, I call it marketecture, sort of high-level view of how the thing is built, and then quickly get into some demos. I think that knowing end-to-end how it functions will help you form questions to ask as well. So the first thing is, at the core of every single Skype for Business meeting broadcast is a Skype for Business meeting. This meeting always runs in the cloud. It runs in a dedicated meetings pool that we've created specifically for the use of broadcast meetings. We can maintain a high availability metric for that pool. But it is just a meetings pool. It's just a typical online meeting environment that we can join through any other Skype for Business client. So in this case, I'm showing how we've joined with Skype for Business, and I've added both HD video and a remote speaker. And remote to us would be, if I were to extend this meeting, we're local, so we've got a few people. We have a camera and a capture device for the slides joined into the meeting right now. But I might have a remote speaker, maybe a university on the East Coast, and they're going to come in and say something intelligent. That's not going to happen today. We also add one more role, and we call this the producer. But this is the person that's in and really controlling what the audience is seeing. So in a typical Skype for Business meeting, end users control their own view. They can turn the gallery on and off. They can move people around. They can pin one person or another. They can show the content stage. They can actually take a private view of the slides and advance through the deck ahead of you. Skype for Business broadcasts are different. So the audience sees what you want them to see. They can't go ahead. They can rewind, but they can't go forward in the content. They can't pick different views. You're really producing the event, and so we add this producer. Now, this isn't to say that you need 3 clients to join every one of the broadcasts. I could sit at my desk with just a webcam. In fact, I'll show you this in a minute. I can sit at my desk, just a webcam. I can start a broadcast meeting. 10,000 of my closest friends can come in and watch. And it's just me streaming. And I'm my own producer and the camera device. So it can be done at very small scale with just one. I can scale this up to 250 people if I wanted to, each with their own camera. And the last thing, and we do this a lot too back at work, is we can inject into the meeting another Skype for Business client, but connected to that is an HD capture device that we connect into Microsoft Studios. And so if we are running a big event, we actually do this for Satya Q&As, which we do monthly. The Microsoft Studios produces those events. They're very kind of high quality, high production value meetings. We connect those into our broadcast channel, and we stream it out to the employee base. So there's only really one producer in that meeting, and they're not throwing any switches. They're just selecting the one and only input source from Studio and streaming it out to the large audience. So it's a very flexible way of managing what we call this inner meeting or the core meeting to provide the content feed into broadcast. The next most critical part of the solution is Azure. So Azure is where we have built our system that we call the Composer. The Composer is taking all of the video feeds in from that meeting. We take up to 6 of the most active video feeds, and we compose them into various views that are relevant for the type of device that we're streaming to, so different encoding formats. And we provide multiple bit rates so that we can scale the bandwidth needs down based on both the network capacity and the device size that we're streaming to. Azure then re-encodes that content and drops it into their CDN, the Content Delivery Network, and that goes global, and then the media is available geographically close to wherever your users are, done on demand, and streams out to any sort of attendee app that joins. And we support effectively joining from any browser. Phones, tablets, PCs, doesn't really matter. So anything HTML5 capable browser we can run on. So let's talk more about how. So how do we go about creating these and running them? So we call this the meeting lifecycle. Lifecycle is about how I create, set up, and then activate and start a meeting. And then at the end, how do I capture all the data? I want to know all the stuff that happened in that meeting and use it in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to show you a lot of this, but to make sure I cover all the points, the one thing I'm not going to show you actually is how we discover the broadcast option in the first place. So within Outlook, where people do their normal scheduling, this is the scheduling like I schedule any other meeting. If I add a lot of people onto the to line, we're going to start telling you, hey, there's maybe a better option for this meeting. If I put 500 people there, I want to tell people that's not going to be a successful Skype for Business meeting if you make it just a regular collaborative meeting and 500 people expect to join. So we're going to tell you there's a broadcast option. Would you like to do that? And if you say yes, we'll take all the content that you've created in Outlook and bring it into our portal and let you schedule from there. Now, we don't want to overdo it and just assume that once you go over 251, they're all going to be on broadcast. And the reason is that you might be scheduling a meeting that's going to be run locally, and 400 of the people are going to come to the meeting in person, and you have only 100 people online. That can be Skype for Business. It can also be broadcast. There's no minimum either. But I create and I manage my meetings. I can edit them in the portal. I set my audience settings, my security or authentication settings. And we support 3 models here, so we can make it very secure, very locked down, so that if a person is not invited, if they're not put on the to line by the organizer, they cannot join. We can make it what we call open, which means I can invite a set of people, but anyone within my tenant is allowed to join. We use this a lot at work, so we'll have the office team create a broadcast meeting, but they open it so that all Microsoft FTEs can join. So if you happen to be in the Windows team and you're interested in the meeting, you can watch, but you don't explicitly get the invitation. And the last option is anonymous. So if you have the URL, you're free to join. This is more of a webinar type of model. I can customize the event, and so this is important because we want the meeting to be your meeting. It's not our meeting. It doesn't need to say Skype for Business meeting broadcast all over it. That would take up a lot of space. So we want it to have your brand on it. So you can customize the logo and the theme and the way the attendee app looks, and customize your own extensions and add the engagement apps that you want to have. And then after a meeting is over, we want you to get access to all the data that happened in the meeting. And so post-meeting, you can come in and take the recording that we've created, and with one click, publish it off to Office 365's video portal. So it's available for anyone to watch on demand. And you can also download a set of telemetry that we have, some that I'll show you today, and we'll be expanding this a lot over time, that tells you everything about what happened in that meeting as far as your attendee audience. Who came in, when they came in, what sort of device they were on, what type of experience they had even. So that's all available in the report. So with that, I'm going to cut over quickly and show you a quick demo of what that portal looks like. Okay. So here we see the scheduling portal. We have all the meetings right now for the month of May. And there's a bunch of these that I created during the keynote. We used the solution to broadcast the keynote. But I want to show you how we create a new one. So I'll come into the new meeting portal. And here on the left, you'll see my invitation. So I actually manage and create the invitation for the event right within the portal itself. I don't have to use Outlook for this. I tend to do it right in the app. And I'll manage my invitation list there. Try to refresh it. There we go. That's better. So I'll call this, I'm going to be Contoso today. I'm going to do a cooking show. So the subject here is cooking with Greg. And my wife would laugh a lot about that. More than you guys did. So the event team, I'm logged in right now as this user 3 demo. I'll leave just that user as the demo user. And this is a cooking show for my company. There's no security here. I'm going to make it an open meeting. But I'm going to go ahead and just close this invite. But within that page you saw on the right, I edit. I have a full HTML editor. I can rich text editor. So I can craft my invite, put pictures in, whatever I want, and send it off. So I come back to the page, and I've got, this is going to be my cooking with Greg meeting. And because this is a webinar kind of thing, I'm going to leave this anonymous. Now I can choose how I want my audience to experience the video as well. We provide DVR controls so that anyone sitting there watching the meeting can get up and go grab a cup of coffee, pause it. They can come back and resume. If I come in late, I can just rewind and catch it from the beginning. But in some cases, you might really want to insist that your users are watching it live. They don't want to provide DVR. We can turn that off. We can also turn off the ability for us to record that meeting in the cloud. In that case, it's streamed live, and then there's no recording available afterwards. So that's good there. I'm going to go ahead and just customize this meeting. And so here you'll see I can set my custom logo. So I made one of these up for this meeting. This is my Contoso Food and Dining Company. Now the cooking thing makes sense, doesn't it? I can also set up what we call curtains. And the curtains are what will show up on the web page for the attendees before the meeting actually gets started. So they can land there at any time, and it will just show the curtain. It'll say, like this one says, we'll begin the broadcast soon. Please stand by. And then as soon as we go live from the producer, this will just switch over to video automatically, and the media will begin. We also let you set up slates for after the meeting for meetings that were live only, and if you need to pause the event at any time. Now down here we see how we extend the meeting. So we have a couple of different options. We can put meeting content to the right of the video panel or below it. I'll show you what that looks like in a real meeting. But for now, I'm just going to show what a lower extension might look like. So out of the box, when we launch the product, we'll support direct link for Yammer. And the Yammer setup is super simple. You add a Yammer conversation, and then I can just go and give it the Yammer ID. And then with any Yammer conversation, there's a box at the top that default says, what are you working on? And I can customize that. So I can say, let's talk about cooking, right? And people can come in and add their own comments. I can also add panels to the right. And here I might want to add a pulse, and we'll show a bit about that. Q&A is super important for a large meeting, so you can take questions from people that are not in your audience, but they're online. And for that, Event Builder, actually we've partnered with Event Builder to help us build a very rich Q&A that we'll show a demo of in a moment. And lastly, I can add a custom extension. And a custom extension lets me build my own line of business app. Maybe I want ads to appear to the right of my video. Maybe I want some other form of social engagement, or I want Twitter in there. So I can craft my own event however I choose and paste it in. It's a very lightweight integration model, so we're just hosting a frame, and we can host the content in there. For the other ones, we do support single sign-on. For custom extension, I can't yet describe how we're going to provide authentication into that model, if we can do SSO or not. We're still working on a solution for that. So there's my customization. And finally, at the bottom, on the bottom of every attendee page will be 2 support links. One of them is to your own help desk. And these are for things that are troubleshooting, tips that people might experience within your company based on your own unique network situation. And the other will always point to us. So we'll always have a support page that help people with sort of basic setup options of, like, why isn't my media playing? And we can walk them through some options there. So with that, I think we're done customizing our page. So I've just created a new event, and you'll see Cooking with Greg appears, and that'll be coming up soon. While we're in here, I also want to show you the post-meeting experience. So last week, this has been a busy couple of weeks for us and for the company, we had Build. So we also streamed Build within the organization. And so here you see our post-meeting page. And this will be available as soon as you click End Broadcast. We'll go off and create that data, do the recording, and shortly after, this post-meeting page will light up for your meetings. So here you see the recording. You can click and watch Satya introducing Build. With one click, well, it's a little more than one click, but one click I can start publishing to Office 365 Video. The next click is asking you which channel. So Office 365 Video has multiple channels that are defined within the scope of your org, and we let you publish this wherever you choose to. I can also download. So I get an MP4 file. I can download the video. If I want to edit it, tweak it in some way, I can do that. And then I can re-upload it to wherever I want. So we also provide an attendee report. This data here is not real data, but we're showing the mix of devices that had joined into the meeting. And so you can get a sense of, are people generally watching it on their PCs? Are they on a phone? And if you open up the full detailed report, we actually give you an Excel file that really gives you all of this data that you can really pivot in any way that you want. I had a little trouble downloading this one earlier.
Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
How long is the meeting stored?
How long is the meeting stored? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the question is, how long is the meeting stored? I assume you mean within Azure. Yeah. So the meeting will be stored for 90 days within Azure after the conclusion of the event. And anybody that comes in and if they open the calendar and click join, they'll go and watch the meeting in a mode that we call VOD. So we switch from DVR, which is real time, I can rewind, fast forward. There it goes. To video on demand mode. And we make that switch for you automatically. There's nothing to do. If you come in and make the switch to publish to Office 365 Video within that 90 days, the join link that people were hitting on the calendar, we remap that and we point it to Office 365 Video. So at any time in the future, if people go back to their calendar and click join again, they're going to go get the VOD version of that in its new destination. So there's no, you don't end up losing the video. So, well, this was supposed to download. Oh, I kept it open from before. Let's see if I can go over to it. No, okay, well, we can skip that. But it's basically a huge table that shows you a list of who's in the meeting, what time they came in, and then when they left, if they were live or if they had rewound. So a lot of rich data about how your audience interacted with that meeting. And then lastly, based on how you've set up your meeting, we give you new entry points back to the extensions that you've included. So after the meeting is over, I can click on the Bing Pulse link, and I can go off to Pulse and see the post-meeting report that they've created that shows me the audience sentiment throughout the meeting. Did that work? No, doc recovery. I don't want to turn this into an Excel demo, so let's go back. Okay. So that's actually that's the end of that demo about workflow or the kind of end-to-end life cycle. So let me come back and talk about producing. So as a large meeting producer, you will join, again, with your normal Skype for Business client. We'll show you some new UI that I'll bring up in a minute. And from that, I can start and stop the broadcast. This starting tears down the slate, shows the video for attendees. And we allow them to manage the PowerPoint content, manage slides. They can present. You can still have remote presenters, of course. I can pick a layout. So our layouts, initial layouts that we'll do at GA, will have a PowerPoint and video side-by-side view where we shrink and crop and center the video and then show a PowerPoint next to it. You can go full-screen PowerPoint or full-screen video. And I can also select audio sources to mix. And one of the things we've done here is, in Skype for Business today, you can remote mute someone. So if there's a lot of background noise coming from them, you can remote mute them. If they're saying something you don't agree with, you can remote mute them. If you want to unmute them, though, it's a little more complicated. So you unmute them, and all that does is tell them that somebody has allowed them to unmute themselves. It doesn't actually do it. And we do that for privacy. We don't want to allow someone to turn on someone else's microphone and hear what's going on, right? So it's a good reason for that feature in Skype for Business. In broadcasts, though, because we want you, the producer, to feel confident that you can get exactly what you want done in that meeting, we override that. So if I remote unmute a speaker, it will forcibly remote unmute that remote speaker. And so the producer really does have full control over the audio and video that gets mixed into the broadcast. Okay, so the question is, can we make it so that we have designated speakers and the producer can only remote unmute them but not anyone else? Okay, so it's not about, can only one person remote mute unmute someone else? Yep, yeah. Yep, so we don't have that now. It's an interesting idea, though. What we want, so we did have a concept at one point of people, as they join, they kind of pick a role. I'm a presenter, I'm a moderator, I'm a producer. It was actually just too overwhelming. It was too complex. I don't know what role I should, what if I'm producing and presenting? What do I pick? So we moved away from roles, and as we did, features like that become a lot more difficult. But yeah, we could certainly think about how we would light that up per person. So I want to talk quickly about capabilities, because our capabilities in broadcast are a little bit different. It's not a strict superset. There are some things we cannot do from a regular meeting. So, of course, the biggest one is scale. So regular meeting 250, broadcast meeting 10,000. Presenter AV, presenting a PowerPoint, those work just as they do today in Skype for Business. There's no change. App sharing and desktop sharing, we cannot support today in Skype for Business. So this is the one I feel the least good about with the solution as we're shipping it. We use this a lot, and what we do now as a workaround is we use these devices. One company makes one called, it's a Magewell, is the name of that company. Blackmagic makes one as well. And they take HDMI sources in with USB 3 out the other end. They're actually powered by USB. They're about this big. They're awesome. They emit H.264 as a webcam out the other end, and we literally take one laptop that has a demo or something that we want to show, take its HDMI output, plug it into USB through this device on another laptop that's in the meeting, and we're able to contribute it as video. So instead of appearing as content or desktop sharing, it appears as a video source, and we can switch it within the gallery. So it's a little bit of a workaround. It works great, but it isn't out of the box. We're not going to be able to support desktop sharing. It is coming shortly after, but not at launch. Attendee camera AV we cannot do. It's a broadcast meeting. We don't take audio video back from the audience. And then there are a set of apps that are interesting in Skype for Business, like Q&A and Poll and Whiteboard. The app models are not compatible with the way we need to render for attendees on a web page. So we've built a new set of applications that are called audience engagement apps. So they're not collaborative in a sense. They're more about engagement. And it's a different category of apps. So we support those in broadcast and not in regular meetings, and vice versa for collaborative apps. PSTN access may be a problem for some customers that initially we're not going to be able to have people dial in to the broadcast channel. We know that a small percentage, single-digit percentage today of large broadcast meetings still do have people dialing in. We know this is a big gap. We have a plan for this, and we'll hopefully be ready to talk about that closer to the end of the calendar year. But we don't have that won't be in the box as we launch. And then the rest I really talked about cloud-based meeting recording. All of our meetings are, unless you turn it off, all of our meetings are recorded in the cloud. The client DVR control, so I can rewind, fast forward, that they're branded, and that we have this functionality of producer. So with that, I actually want to demo what a producer would see. So we'll go back to here. And so I'm going to take this meeting that I've created. It's called Cooking with Greg. And I've got a join link. And I'm just going to join the meeting. So that link typically would get sent out. It would be in your calendar. So pasting it into the address bar is not our normal event. And what you see here is, because I made this an open meeting, this is the page that attendees would be presented with as they join. We're thinking about trying to reduce this so that we can pass them right through immediately, but it's anonymous, so they can't sign in. We don't know who they are, if their intention is to come and watch, or if their intention is to come and produce. I am, in fact, going to come and produce. So I've got this button here that says sign me in as an event team member. And so I'm going to click that, and what we're going to do is launch a Skype for Business meeting. So what's happening right now is that our attendee, our scheduling service, rather, in Azure is informing our meetings pool that we need to create a new meeting. It's basically like Meet Now in the client. So, and that did not work. Oh, I know why that didn't work. I can fix that. Go back and make a new meeting. I'll still keep it anonymous, but this time I'm going to invite another person. I never invited myself to be an event team member, and so that did not work. So instead, I will add my Zig demo account. Here's my demo meeting. And so let's instead launch that meeting. I think that went. I didn't quite catch it. Let me make sure. Yeah, looks like it did. So no lobby this time. I'm actually invited to this meeting. That's a good thing. Okay, so now here I am. I'm in my meeting. And the first thing you'll notice is a new set of buttons that appear. This is our new Skype broadcast capability showing up. We don't actually need this user. Maybe we should invite this person. Let's see who that is. So I want to do a couple things here. I'm going to first turn on my camera, and my camera is this one that's sitting right up here in front, looking at all of you. Say hi to everybody on the internet right now. So one thing you'll notice that happened is that when I added this video, we went 16 by 9. So it's an HD camera, and I immediately took the HD feed and went full 16 by 9. We do that intentionally. So in a regular meeting, there's a feature called Crop and Center My Video that's on by default, and it keeps the video square, and it tracks your motions. If you move around, it tries to keep you in the middle. For a Skype broadcast meeting, we want full HD video for the attendees. So we just turn that off. So when I join this type of meeting, I end up getting always this 16 by 9 video. And I'm going to just activate this video. I'm also going to go and I'm going to add a PowerPoint file. And so I've got one here. And that'll just upload. And that, again, is just muscle memory. Everyone knows how to upload PowerPoint into a Skype meeting. You do that exactly the same way to get it into a broadcast. I add my camera exactly the same way. And I also can invite people the same way. So I've got Michael here, and he's ready to go. So I'm going to invite Michael in, and he'll turn his video on as well. Hi, Michael. Hey, and there's the whole team. Look at that. So the whole team back in Redmond. We can all wave to each other. This is a live meeting. Just to prove it's not fake. Come on. They won't believe me. There we go. All right. So there's my slides. I've got my gallery active. And now I've activated this video. It shows me that this is my active video. Got my slide deck going here. And you'll see on the right, now I can pick from different layouts for this meeting. So I might want to show side by side. So I can say video and content. And maybe this is how I want to open my meeting. So I'll just go and queue that up. I'll get video and content loaded up. And as soon as I'm ready, I just click Start Broadcast. It warns me that if I click Start, that's my only chance. I can't restart it later. Once a broadcast is started and ended, that's it. You have to create a new one. So it's warning me that not to take that lightly. And so I will. And now a little more about this experience. So again, super familiar, right? Assuming that you've got the April PU installed and you're all using Skype for Business already, right? Right? So it's familiar for anyone using Skype for Business. And there we see the live indicator. So now we are live. It's streaming on the internet. And anyone that guessed that GUID in my URL can now watch my meeting. So a couple things. So I added PowerPoint just like everything else. You probably noticed that there were things missing. So when I went in here, we've taken away all of the capabilities that aren't possible in a broadcast meeting that are possible in a regular meeting, so we don't confuse people with that. But I invite people just like I would in any other. We've been playing around lately with inviting people that aren't on a desktop client, so we can invite them in and they can join with Elwa, the Link web app. We can invite them in now on a phone. So we've had people walk around with their iPhones in the Link app, and we kind of watch real time as they move around, which is pretty neat. So that's that. So say goodbye in Redmond. They need to get back to producing this meeting. And I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so lastly, I want to just cover how we attend these meetings and what the audience experience is. So attending, I can join again from any kind of device. We support iPhone, iOS 8 and above, Android 4.0 and above, Windows Phone, Windows tablets. We support IE. I'm going to forget this now. I think it's IE 11 and above. It might be IE 10. Chrome, Safari, Firefox. So really any browser, any device, you can join the meeting. We provide a one-click join for everyone, both producers, the inter-meeting people, and the attendees. And when you invite the producers, that's always better, as you saw. And we tested it. It worked, right? We kept out the people that shouldn't be there. So one click from my calendar, I can invite anyone, and they can join. They watch from any web browser. They get this ability to restart. My team will tell you I'm perpetually late to every single meeting. So when I watch broadcasts, it's great. I can join in the middle. I just rewind to the beginning and watch it from there. I can fast forward through the less exciting parts. And then we can participate in these engagement apps. So one that I don't want to go into a lot of depth about these because there's other sessions that can talk about it, but Bing Pulse has been a great component to integrate. With Bing Pulse, I can track the audience sentiment. They can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Hopefully you're doing that right now. Hopefully it's a lot of thumbs up for what you're seeing. For the people moderating or producing that, they get immediate feedback. So if you had a moderator in the back of the room, they could actually be telling me what the audience is thinking based on these charts. And in real time, I can correct what I'm presenting. Right? It also supports a broadcast message. So a producer can type a message into the Bing Pulse portal and send that out to everyone on Pulse. And polling. They have a very rich polling capability. So I can set up, in fact, the one that we'll show has a poll in it. But I can select different demographics. I can preset different demographics that I want to filter on that people will answer. And then I can fire poll questions throughout my meeting. And at the end of it, I get to see all of the data that came back sliced up by all the different demographic filters that we've applied. Very cool, and it's really great for a large meeting environment, very large meeting environment. So here's some examples. So we talked about our scale and going to support 10,000 people in a given meeting. Bing Pulse has crazy scale. So they've supported the last 2 State of the Union addresses. They've had millions of users online at one time, pulsing things like broadcast events on MSNBC. So we're really happy with that. So I am going to, before we go there, I'm going to do one more demo. Demos are better than slides, I think, right? So I want to keep showing more of what we have. So we're done joining there. So what I've done here is, this is the Ignite keynote. So like I said, we broadcast that. I just clicked on that link to join back in it, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm joining now as a guest, an attendee, not as a producer. And when I come in, I land on our attendee page, and I get to kind of see a track of what's happened so far. The pulse actually is this meeting that I plumbed in, kind of faked up the URL so that I can get this pulse in next to the Ignite keynote. But here, right, I can fast forward. I can recap what happened during the keynote. So this is attendee view with one add-in, and the add-in's on the right, and it's a Bing Pulse. Here's another example, same meeting, but I've modified this one to show, actually I can get rid of that. This time, same meeting, but I've modified it so that the engagement app is a Q&A, and this is the one provided by Event Builder. And then my last one, I'm actually using 2 extensions. And so here's the same video again, but now I've got Bing Pulse on the right, and I've added Q&A on the bottom. So now I can engage in 2 ways with my audience. This obviously is a big screen, so I have lots of room, and I can put both on there. A phone, that's a little more challenging. So on a phone, we just wrap this, and we have tabs. So we have the video, and if you scroll down, we have 2 panels or 2 tabs that show each of the 2 extensions, or one if there's only one. So you can still engage in the very same way on any mobile device. So with that, actually I want to have Jonathan from Event Builder, who's joined me today, come up, and he's going to demonstrate the moderator, or the Q&A moderator side of this very same meeting. Let me switch to you.
Thank you, Greg. My name is Jonathan Ortiz-Myers, and I'm the CEO of Event Builder. And I'm excited to actually, you guys are really quiet. This is really exciting. This is like able to broadcast Skype for business meetings to 6,000 people. I know that Greg's team's been working really hard on this for several months, and I know they're very excited to be able to showcase this. So this is really exciting. This is a big deal in our industry. So at Event Builder, we're really excited today to announce that we're spinning out a brand called Rally Labs, and that's really focused on delivering communication intelligence and engagement apps inside of the UC experience. And we got the opportunity to partner with Greg and his team for the last few months in order to bring our QA module into Skype for Business broadcast meetings. So we're totally stoked about that. So a couple things I just want to showcase here, and I'm hoping that we've got some folks that are going to be giving us a little QA for me to get to moderate here.
I can give you some here. So I'm in your meeting.
Oh, excellent. So I'm going to just tell you real quick, what I'm sitting in right now is what we call the moderator console for QA. And so I can carry a couple of different roles. But so Greg is inside of the attendee application, and he can ask a question. And we built an anonymous QA module, and it can be anonymous by choice. So the attendee can choose to. They can choose to put in their name, and we can see that from the moderator side.
There you go.
There we go. Hi, Greg. We can choose to see that as a moderator, and we can do a couple of different things with that. So Greg just sent me a question here. It says, Greg, so how was your experience building QA with Skype? So we're going to tell you, I think it's really fabulous that Microsoft is focused on building a platform for third parties to both integrate their apps as well as to develop on top of. So I was looking through our database, and I discovered our first commit was on April 7th. And so April 7th was our first commit of any code working to embed our QA module, and here we stand today, and we've got it ready to go, so under a month, and that's pretty exciting. So as you see, as I'm a moderator sitting here, so I can do a couple of things. I can prioritize. So I can say this is priority 1, 2, 3, or 5. So if let's say I'm the traffic cop that's standing at the middle of the intersection. So I can we've built this to be able to have multiple moderators. And so I can be sitting there at the forefront, triaging and directing all of the traffic. So one of the interesting things is we can prioritize questions. We can also set questions to have a particular category as they come in. And so you'll see some technical questions. Greg sent in a tech question here, and I can respond to it. So how was my experience building QA? It was great. And I have a couple of different options here. So as a moderator, I can choose to reply privately, so just to Greg, like I did right there. And in this instance, I can say, so how is it working with Skype meeting? I can say, fabulous. And I can click reply all. And now everyone inside of the meeting can see that I've replied to all. So there might be some questions that come in that are actually really important for the entire audience to get the answer to. So now I'm enabling those questions to make it to the entire audience. Or I can engage privately with certain people. Let's say they're having a technical issue and I don't want to let everybody know, hey, they're having a hard time seeing the stream right now or it's a little choppy. I can privately work with them to triage that event. Or finally, kind of one of the bigger things is that I can send out an announcement and I can say, hey everyone, this is an exciting day for, let's see here, Skype for, it's kind of a mouthful, Greg, Skype for business.
It's not my fault.
You're just the products guy, right?
Yep.
Skype for business, broadcast with a lower, so everyone out there that's on the Twitter sphere, it's a lower B for broadcast meetings. I've made that mistake so many times. And I can send this out as an announcement. So I'm not responding to anyone. I'm just making a system-wide announcement around the system. So
there you go.
Look at that.
It's come up.
So there it is. And it's a super snappy system. We typically see response times in 500 to 750 milliseconds in this. So it's been really great. And one final thing is that kind of like you see the downloadable report for this meeting for broadcast meetings, we too have a downloadable message log into CSV that is able for you to pull every single detailed question, answer, response, and announcement that's made. So just wanted to show that off and appreciate Greg and his team for all they've done. It's really been a great month. All right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, this is the summary of the Event Builder Q&A capabilities. So that'll be in the PowerPoint you can download. So I wanted to provide a little peek kind of behind the curtain here and how some of these work. I'm sure you have a lot of questions as we've presented this to a few customers, mostly our TAP audiences under NDA over the last couple of months. We've gotten a lot of questions, and a lot of them are very similar. So I'm going to try to tackle a lot of those right now. There's 3 questions that I cannot answer today, so I'll let you know what those are before we get into them. The first question is, I can't give you a specific price for the solution yet. I cannot tell you the specific date that we will launch, but it will be this second half of this calendar year. And the third thing is that I've been asked 3 times today is, I cannot tell you if the new middle finger emoticon is going to show up in Skype for Business. I don't know. But it's all over the news. It's on Bing. I mean, come on. All right, so supported deployment models. This is a cloud-based solution. Our meetings will always run in the cloud. There's 2 very important reasons for that. The first is that we know that the server capacity itself can handle what we need to have an audience load of that size, and that the bandwidth between our meetings pool in our own data center connecting to Azure, where we have to pump 5 or 6 HD streams at the same time, is a very, very good connection. May not be the case for your own company and your own network egress. So for us to confidently assert that you can have 10,000 people join and have a great experience, there are things that we have to control about the network environment. And so to do that, we need to move the meeting pool into the cloud. It doesn't mean that you have to be a cloud-only customer. We support hybrid models as well. So if you're an on-premises customer today and you activate an online tenant, We ideally will have you set up DirSync so that the user IDs are migrated to the cloud, or at least synced with the cloud, and that ADFS is established so that we can authenticate users with their same corporate credentials that they use for everything else. You could, of course, have a separate tenant that's just for broadcast meeting. Not going to be the most efficient way for users. They would have to have separate passwords to maintain and a different account. It's possible. If you really wanted our broadcast solution, you could make that work. Not the recommended approach. So we really need an Office 365 tenant and DirSync and ADFS set up to make this work. If you are a hybrid customer, there's two things. I talked about already about the ADFS requirement. And we also need, today you typically would set up with setting a new hosting provider with your online tenant. We need to add another online hosting provider that federates your on-premises server with our meetings pool. So it's one extra step. It's clear in the documentation how to do that. It's just a few steps, a pretty simple commandlet, and that's all you need to do. So that always comes up. That's usually question number 2. I'll get to question number 1 in a minute. Admin capabilities. So as an IT admin, what can I control about the way people are using Skype for meeting broadcasts? So as an organizer, I have a lot of customization capabilities. Some of those can be controlled by IT policy as well. So a policy can be set to lock in a specific theme, a specific logo, the images for the curtains, and then the help desk support link for your internal support on the attendee page. Those can all be set and defaulted either as a default or a locked default so that they can't be changed by the organizer. We allow you to set a threshold. This was a good example of one based on customer feedback that we got. We assumed once it's bigger than Skype for Business at 250, we'll start prompting people to use broadcast. And we got feedback that a company didn't want people running meetings even up to 250. They wanted to start prompting at like 50 people. To go to a broadcast instead. So now that threshold is configurable. In the invitation itself that we send out, typically a company will have on their outbound email channel, they'll have a disclosure or disclaimer attached to the bottom of all emails. The email invitations that we send come from our service, and so we all allow you to now set that same disclaimer statement on the emails that we'll generate that are inviting people to the meeting. And then you can also have policy that blocks the ability to do both DVR and blocks the ability to do online meeting recording, our cloud recording. So video distribution. This is the usual number 1 question. What is this going to do to my network? I'm going to have all these streams coming in. How am I going to be able to scale to handle that? So there's a couple of things that we do. So the first is we provide adaptive streaming. And I've provided the bit rates here. But a player will adapt to whatever the network capacity is or whatever the device screen capacity is. It'll scale down the video. And so if you do have a lot of people in one geographic place sharing one point of ingress into the company, and the network does get saturated, it will sort of self-monitor and correct itself. That does have a quality impact, of course. As you degrade the bit rate, you degrade the video signal and therefore the quality. So we lower the resolution of the video effectively. The audio we don't change. It comes through very clearly, but the video will scale down. But beyond that, we want to make sure that we're providing you with choice. Every network is a little bit different. So we want to provide you with choice about how you manage your internal bandwidth and network consumption. So the first that we provide is obviously we hook up through the Azure CDN. So people are always drawing the content from a source, a location that's geographically close to them. The next is that our player and the CDN support ARR-based caching. So if you have servers that are designated ARR disk caches, we'll allow those. You can write a rule that will allow people to pull content that somebody else has pulled already from one of your caches. And so they're not all hitting your internet ingress point. That still doesn't quite affect internal network consumption, but usually the choke point is going to be on your internet access point, not on kind of the wire and wireless networks within the company. The last is to really support SDN. And We are working with the Azure team to provide an SDN solution for Skype broadcasts. And the idea is that we'll have a turnkey solution. It shouldn't be anything that you have to go and buy separately. And we're baking the functionality right into the player to support a solution that Azure will be providing for us. So this allows users that are consuming the meeting to effectively cache the packets for the broadcast on their local device, and then become a source point for other people. So if I'm in a room with 20 people, I can actually, if I'm consuming it first, I might become the access point that other people come and get that video from. So that helps me reduce network utilization across my entire internal network. When we've tested a few of these solutions in-house, and we've measured up to 100,000 seats within the company, streaming a video from the internet. We saw, in some cases, a 97% network access point reduction. So they're very efficient, they're very effective, and we're working with Azure. I can't provide a lot more detail about what that solution is or how they're building it, but we will, at the time that we launch, we'll have a great story for SDN. So with that, we have the evaluation session here. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and I'm happy to take those for the next 15 minutes or so. There was a question. Yeah, there's mics. I think there's 4 of them.
So will it support multicast or WAN and LAN?
Will it support multicast for WAN and LAN? So we really support only a unicast stream.
Okay.
So what we're effectively doing is we're encrypting all the packets for the meeting within Azure, and we're sending over HTTP the encrypted packets for the player to decrypt and play. And at the time that you join, you acquire the key that you need to decrypt that packet. So it's a unicast solution that we're not going to be able to support multicast, but you will be able to access either cache data, where the packets are still encrypted on the cache or on the peer's machine if we're using an SDN peer-to-peer model. You're decrypting it yourself and storing the only decrypted copy of that on your own machine.
Got it. And
can we use the microphones?
Yeah.
Just so everybody can hear.
Just to follow up on.
Yep.
So do you guys have anything on a roadmap for a breakout session, the separate room within the webcast?
Yeah, so the question is about breakout session and if we're going to support, like Live Meeting does, in fact, have breakout session. So we won't have that at launch. It is something that it's in the roadmap, though.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Another question?
How much control do you have over the post-meeting experience as far as saying you can't download this, you can only stream it, or something like that?
So how much control do we have over post-meeting? For attendees or for the organizers?
For attendees. Well, put in place by the organizer, but for the attendees.
Okay, so an organizer can, at the end of a meeting, make the video unavailable for attendees again. So especially in a case where I require that the video is watched live and not DVR'd, I can set it so that at the end of the meeting, I just see curtain and there's nothing that the audience can do. The player itself doesn't provide a capability to download the video. So there's no attendee download available.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Take one here.
Are you looking at doing any sort of call admission control type features with this so that, say, for example, we've got customers that are on low-speed networks that, quite frankly, we don't want them to eat the entire low-speed network up with the meeting. We'd rather have them huddle around, but, do you think there's going to be a way to do that inside the player or somewhere?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question.
So call admission control basically will limit the bandwidth per network segment. So for example, if we had branch offices with small network pipes, maybe they got 50 people there. We don't want them all trying to contend for 50 streams. We just would sort of like them to, maybe use a couple streams. Is there going to be any way for us to limit network segments through the administrator panel? We can do that today, for example, in Link.
That actually, it sounds like something that ARR would provide, right? So that you would be basically caching the entire video on the ARR caching server in that one geographic location and having a rule that requires that everybody within that location is drawing from that cache. So really only the first person that's watching the video or anybody that requests a packet that's not yet available in the cache would go and hit the internet source, the unicast source, to go get it from Azure.
All right.
Does that
Cool.
make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if the APIs for the browser, you can have an SDK kit for it,
An SDK for
the APIs, because I'm assuming the attendees won't need
for
to
consuming it?
don't need to download a plugin, like WebRTC or ORTC, similar to that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you're asking about do we have an API that allows you to kind of host your own attendee experience, but with our video and distribution? So we don't right now. It's come up a couple of times as a way that we might provide more of a closed sort of registration, watch the video, kind of within a different experience. For now, we wanted to keep the experience a Skype for Business meetings experience. It's not out of the question, but it's not something we have planned sort of in the coming calendar year.
Is there a policy to set who can become a producer? Is that a link policy, or can anyone start a broadcast?
There is. Effectively, the way that's done is by having the license for Skype for Business meeting broadcast assigned to specific people. And those people would be allowed to schedule and produce the meeting. Well, actually, that's not quite accurate. They can schedule the meeting, and they can control who is invited as a producer. But if you're invited as a producer and you have the Skype for Business client, when you join in, you have the producer capabilities. What I've kind of heard, and actually this is a great time because we're still far enough away from launch we can take feedback. What I've heard a little bit with that and one of the other questions is having some way to kind of control the role of a person in a meeting and reduce their capability is maybe an interesting thing. Okay, that's good feedback.
For the hybrid-only scenario, you mentioned ADFS is a requirement. Do you know, is that 2.0 or is it 3.0 or both?
I honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
No, I don't know the answer to that. I can find it. If you want to wait until after, I can get you somebody that can answer it.
Thanks.
So is a producer the same as a leader or a presenter in a regular Skype meeting? Is it something that can be changed on the fly, or is it a producer is the producer for this meeting?
So the role of the designation of somebody as a producer is a little bit more of a social designation than a codified one in the product. So it's something that you would agree to the people that are in your inner meeting. That inner meeting, the event team meeting, is typically very small. The one that we have today that we're broadcasting this meeting on has 3 people that are in that event team at all. We have 2 that are here and 1 back in Redmond that's producing it. But Mike here, who's doing it, actually has the same version of the client. He can still be the producer if he needed to be, which is actually handy in a sort of failover situation, social failover more than technical. But yeah, so everyone kind of is a producer if they have the right version of the Skype for Business client. So if they're on an old version and they join, or if they're on a mobile device, for example, then they would not have that capability. We are taking one extra step, sorry not to cut you off, but we are taking one step to block link clients from joining in as an inter-meeting attendee. And there's a reason that we're doing that. So if you are still running the link client versus Skype for Business client, you can do things in the meeting that are actually damaging to the meeting itself. So Lock Video Spotlight, for example. Lock Video Spotlight doesn't just show me in my own gallery one video. Lock Video Spotlight tells the AVMCU to desubscribe everyone from all other video sources. And so if somebody joined one of our inner meetings with a link client and locked Video Spotlight on someone, our composer in Azure would lose its video subscriptions to everybody. And that would destroy the meeting. So we have to block old clients where we can't go back and touch the code. But for any new modern client, and then our mobile clients that just don't have that capability at all, we're letting them into the meeting.
So are those handful of people that are in the meeting able to take over and broadcast themselves out as the producer? Like if the one in the back, he wanted to take over and start that?
So if Mike pointed the camera at himself and decided, yeah, so yes, they could. Okay. Again, it's more of a social designation of producer, and you should have people in the inner meeting that you trust. Trust a lot, in fact. But, you know, at the end of the day, you have to be able to trust the people that are in your event team. I mean, this is a core team of people. Yep.
Can your producers and presenters remain on the on-prem pool, the home users pool?
Oh, yeah. So, sorry, maybe I didn't make that clear before. So the question is, can my producer users remain on the home pool? So if they're on-prem, they can stay on-prem. We don't have to move users around at all. When we activate the meeting, what basically happens, we activate the meeting through the scheduling service. Meeting spins up in our meeting pool in the cloud, and attendees join that pool they get a SIP connection through their home pool. So all the traffic is still going to be able to be tracked and logged through SIP logging in your home pool. And then we relay that to our meeting pool in the cloud. We have a separate channel through UC that we connect to the meeting pool server specifically, just to fire the commands about production, like changing layout and starting the broadcast. But yeah, we don't have to move any users around. Yeah, thanks. That was a good point.
So the meeting actually happening, all the mix is on the pool on premises or in the dedicated pool in the cloud?
So the meeting itself will always run in the dedicated pool in our cloud. That's where the meeting pool is that the meeting actually runs out of. It's not in your, in an on-prem case, it's not in your on-prem pools.
But the presenter or join the meeting through the home pool, then connect to the...
Right, but this is why we require federation with our online meeting pool, so that anyone that's within that enterprise on-prem is a trusted user that we can take into the meeting pool, and they can present, they come in as a trusted entity.
But you require the whole enterprise, the AD will be synced into the cloud, right?
Well, yeah, so that's an interesting question too. So how much of the enterprise do I have to sync to the cloud? It depends on what you're actually trying to achieve. So anywhere that you want people to authenticate with their corporate credentials, we need them to be synced to the cloud. If you're going to run open meetings and your attendees don't need to sign in, they don't need to be moved, they don't need to be synced with the cloud, their account information. But producers, they will always need to be have their information synced to the cloud or have a separate standalone account for them. But I mean, the easiest way end to end is that all accounts from on-prem are synced with the cloud, so that private meetings that require authentication, we just support SSO and they sign in like anyone else.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions. In the presentation, mentioned the producer can control the audio mix. So can you elaborate on where is the audio mix?
By audio mixing?
Yeah, what is
So audio mixing might be overstating it a little bit, but the mixing occurs in the cloud in our meeting. And the AVMCU handles all audio mixing. And mixing for us is a combination of echo cancellation and sound tinning, removing tinning, and sound improvement. The control that the producer has is really a mute-unmute function. So I'm picking which sources get audio, but we automatically level and make that sound better in the cloud.
I saw we have our large meeting solution. They have a kind of a DJ kind of person, you know. So I say, how can the producer do that?
Right, yeah.
And then you mentioned when you start a meeting, you cannot really stop it. But say if something happening, or can I pause the meeting?
So,
like how?
Pause is a little tricky. So the problem is that we end up recording all of this into Azure storage, and then you want to be able to download and use it later. And when people come in and watch, they don't want to sit and watch the full duration of the pause. So it's kind of a matter of what do we record and what do we dispose of or not record of the stream that we're getting. So for V1, we made a decision to just simply not support pausing. We may, based on feedback, we may feel that that there's a real customer need for it. But right now we want to have people start and run the meeting and then stop the meeting. Pausing gets a little complicated when recording comes in.
Best practice for the producer, say if something happens, just pull slides over there or something.
Yeah, they could put a slide up. All right, exactly. So you could create a fictitious pause by muting everybody and putting a placeholder slide in place and streaming that and then coming back to live video.
I have two more questions, but I will let other people do. I will talk to
you. Okay, thanks.
Do you have plans to scale or certify above 10,000 attendees?
Yeah, so plans is hard to answer. We have a desire to go above 10,000 people. So let me explain why there's a 10,000 person limit. So all of our video streaming is done with Azure Media Services. Azure Media Services was used for the last Olympic Games. They had millions of simultaneous viewers. There is no reason in the world that we can't take our video page and scale it to millions of attendees. the attendee page that hosts the extensions and that we get a lot of telemetry back from to provide the organizer with all the data at the end of the meeting. That part is the part that we own and we're building, and we're running 10,000 person meetings not just for you and your company, but for all of our customers, potentially simultaneously. So we need to be careful about overcommitting the number of people that we can have in for any one customer to make sure that we have the capacity to handle all of our customers together. And the confidence point is super important. To be highly reliable and available, we need to make sure we can test and confidently assert that 10,000 people will work every time. And so we picked 10,000 as a limit that we knew we could test to and we knew we could achieve, and it would be rock solid. A lot of people ask, and we will certainly extend that in the future. I don't have a specific, like, yeah, we'll go to 100,000 here and 1 million then, but yes, our roadmap is to go bigger.
Okay, yeah, because for us, that's like 3% of our end user, population.
Wow.
So, well, it's a mid-sized solution, unfortunately for us. But,
okay.
It gets us between that 250 limit and 100,000 that we sometimes do, in a really big one. So.
Okay. I'd love to talk to you about beta testing and see if we can.
So if I have express route set up for my Office 365, will it take advantage of the employee that is at work? Would it take advantage of that express route?
So, I got asked that yesterday. I'm not sure. I need to check into that. I don't know the answer to that now.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay.
So that's to the event builder, that QA modular. So in my logic, right, the moderator is just prioritize the question come in, but it should be the speaker who can answer those questions. But so I was wondering, like, when you get a question, the moderator can triage them, but then should send the question to different speaker, depends on the question. Then the speaker can answer the question during the meeting and broadcasting to everyone.
Yep.
So how does that work with the module? Yeah.
So, well, Jonathan can add anything if I miss it, but as you ask a question, I showed this briefly. Actually, it's still up. I can show you what it looks like. Yeah, so here, as I ask a question, I can choose a set of categories that can be determined by the organizer ahead of time, like what those categories are. And I could theoretically have a moderator that's each watching a different category of questions as they come in.
But how can the speaker get assigned a question and they know it's a question to them and then they can answer?
So, well, they also, there's two ways. So Event Builder supports an announcement feature where you could ask a question and broadcast it out and get responses. Bing Pulse also has a polling feature where I can set up a poll before the event starts and have them ready, and I can ask my audience poll questions throughout the meeting. And they also support an announcement feature that you can just broadcast a message. So I think both have the ability to do sort of that two-way. I can ask out to the audience, and I can get questions back from the audience.
But to this particular UI, right, you get the question, you mark it. How does the speaker get those questions, right?
Oh, I see what you're asking. So not the moderator, but the actual speaker. Yeah. I see.
Because I think the speaker, the people are address questions, should answer questions. Moderator just in the middle of,
Yep. So I've seen it done two ways when we run these back at work. In some cases, you have somebody in the front row, an admin, somebody that's part of the team, that's reading the online questions and kind of being that moderator in triage. And at the time that the question, when they're doing Q&A, the moderator will actually read the question into a microphone so that everybody can hear it and the speaker can answer it.
But you're talking about everyone in the same room. I'm thinking about a global meeting. You have speakers in different rooms, then you have maybe main conference room have a majority, or maybe you have conference room across different regions.
Yep. So the other way would be that the speakers themselves could be viewing the moderator page and watching the questions as they come in. Somebody can still be triaging for them, prioritizing them, so that the speaker can just glance at the screen easily and see the number one question that the moderator has ranked up, and read the question and answer it from there. So I think those are all pretty well covered.
Okay. Last thing is about the unicasting thing, because we were planning to do a town hall meeting using Link. Then we found out Link only supported unicasting. Then the network can say, no, we cannot do that, right? So we were waiting for those large meeting thing. And we were told it can do multicasting, but then someone asked question before, and you said it's still unicasting, but not multicasting. So
right, but you should look deeper at the options that we have for either caching or for SDN that I think would still achieve the goal that you're trying to get to with multicast.
Would there be more like technical document?
Yes.
I have more for you.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, unicast meeting doesn't have the same ring to it as broadcast meeting. Yeah, you're right. It is a different technology. It's more of a use case than a technology name. But yeah, your feedback makes perfect sense. We do have a white paper that we're working on right now that we'll publish ahead of release that helps customers kind of prepare their network in different ways, however they choose, to support the unicast of broadcasts. Any others? All right, thank you very much.